Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of Sweetaly Gelato, Francesco Amendola. Francesco, how are you today?
Good. How you doing?
Great. Welcome. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, Francesco, tell us all about Sweetaly.
Sweetaly, we started in 2014. We came straight from Italy with, of course, the American dream of, having a business here in the United States and expand eventually. We came with my family from northern Italy at that time. I'm from southern Italy, but my wife is from northern Italy, and I trained how to make gelato in northern Italy, and then I came here. Okay, well, when you got here, why gelato? What was it about gelato that you wanted to start a business here? So I have even when I lived in Italy, I had a lot of American friends, and every time I would talk to them, they'll always brag about eating gelato every day and walking and eating, stopping multiple times to different gelato shops. And so when me and my wife were thinking about what kind of business should we open in the US if we ever moved there, one thing that came to mind was we're eating gelato in a gelateria in Italy, and I was I think we got the answer right here. And just I pointed out, Americans love gelato. They always talk about gelato every time they go to Italy. So I'm
and rightfully so. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So that's how it started, basically.
And what were you doing before this?
So, believe it or not, I was a franchisee for an organic supermarket. So I owned my own organic supermarket, and I did it for almost 10 years.
So I think it's fascinating. Anytime somebody has a franchising background as a franchisee and then becomes franchisor, because it is rare. First of all, I don't come across a whole lot of founders that were franchisees. But the beauty of you coming over to the franchisor side is that you understand what franchisees go through, what they really, really need for training and support, not what sometimes us, and I'll be the first one to say, I come from a franchisor background, so it's hard. I've only seen it through that lens, but you're able to see it on what it takes for a franchisee to succeed. And how did that inspire you, or what did that do to impact how you were going to, launch Sweetaly?
So I know that being a franchisee is not easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got your challenges, you got your problems, and you get mad at your franchisor because they don't let you do whatever you want, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I understand why. There are certain rules and there are certain things, because you want to keep the thing authentic. You want to make sure that the customer gets the same experience. So when you become part of franchising, you're espousing the idea that made you fall in love with that business. And so I think it's me being a franchisee is gonna help me out for sure, being a franchisor.
Yeah, no question about it. Francesco, how'd you come up with the name Sweetaly? I do love it, by the way. That's really unique.
I don't know. I wanted to be short and kind of incorporate the Italy and what we sell, which is sweet memories,
Absolutely. Okay, so what was life like when you first opened your first Sweetaly company-owned location?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was really hard. It was really hard because, even though I lived in the United States before I went to college here, coming back after 12 years, it's still like a cultural impact, a very strong cultural impact, and you're not used to certain things. I owned a business in Italy, and it was different, very different. And also, like, I noticed some key differences between owning a business in Italy and in the US. So it wasn't easy at all. But so I spent multiple, like 80 hours a week in the shop. And yeah, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, but what would you say was probably one of the most difficult challenges you had to overcome, and how did you how did you overcome it?
I'll be honest with you, employees. Employees is the number one problem in the US, I think. The work ethics, it's a little different than Europe. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
Workers are more reliable. But on the other hand, I think that the American customer is way better than the European customer.
How? How?
The American customer is more easygoing.
Okay. All right. So the employees are more difficult, but the
Perfect.
customers are more easygoing. Well, that's a head twister. It balances out. Well, obviously you figured it out, Francesco, because you opened a second company on location.
Yeah. I figured it out, even though I'm trying to grow slowly, not too fast, because I think that there are a lot of companies, when they grow too fast, they end up in way more problems. So we have two locations, and they're they're working really well. And so we're ready to open a third location, whether it's franchising or not. So plus COVID was in the middle of, these 10 years we've been in business. So that
Right.
costs something. But
Well, I mean, Francesco, you opened a gelato place, first of all, in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is incredible in itself. But, you got a cold weather climate, and you succeeded not once, twice, and now you're going to open a third one, which is phenomenal. Was there a pivotal moment while you were running this business where you really, maybe you and your wife were talking and said, I think we're really onto something here. Like this business is working.
yeah, when we started in a very rough area, because we bought a business from an Italian gentleman who was making gelato for restaurants.
Okay.
So it was just a very hole in the wall. It did not sell gelato to the public. It was just had a few equipment, machineries and stuff, and it was selling. And so we bought the machinery from this gentleman from Florence. And so we had a small section in front of our kitchen. And it's like, what if we open right here and let's see how it goes? And I mean, it was a very bad area. We got robbed twice in that little, it was like really bad. But the first day, without any advertisement, just a Facebook post, the first day when we opened, there was a line at the door. It was like incredible. I remember that we had 1,500 customers that day.
Holy cow.
I was making gelato like crazy, trying to keep up with the customers. At that moment, I was like, yeah, this could really work.
This is going to work. What are some of the most popular flavors?
We got so many. For sure, the pistachio. We import the pistachios from Sicily.
Wow.
Pistachio gelato is great. The most popular one is salted caramel. Very American flavor, but really popular, really good. Yeah, these are the two that comes to mind. But also the dark chocolate is also a very good one.
Nice. So before you were a franchisee, Francesco, did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family? Were you encouraged to start a business, or did you sort of break the mold?
I grew up in a very poor family in southern Italy. I did not have any sort of background, like business background. My mom was a single mom with 4 kids. So I left Italy when I was 20. And I went to the United States to go to school. My mom saved up all the money she could to send me to the United States. And I met my wife. She's from northern Italy. And that's how, And then gradually being here in the United States, studying business school, I learned a lot about business. And that's how, I was like, maybe I'm a business owner.
That's
Yeah.
What a great success story, man. Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, all right. So now you get to the point, you've got a couple stores open, and now it's time to franchise. Like what made you desire to franchise the concept? Because after all, you were a franchisee in the past. You saw how rough that could be.
Yeah, it's not easy. But at the same time, I understand that there are a lot of people out there that they were really like they want to be part of our Sweetaly family. And I think that it will be a good way for me to expand the company. Of course, making everything in a very artisan way and very authentic way. It for me, it will be almost impossible to expand without the help of the franchisees.
Absolutely. It will certainly make it easier, but it is a longer road for anybody
Yeah.
that's listening to this. Wouldn't you agree that if there's other founders out there that are listening to this, that are inspired by you, that it's not a quick, it's not a get rich quick scheme to be a franchisor?
No, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's definitely a longer road, but I think it's the right road for a lot of people for for a lot of the reasons we're talking about here. Francesco, what about markets? So of course you've expanded throughout Salt Lake. As you go to franchise, are you looking to franchise kind of in that same region, or are you looking nationwide initially? What are your thoughts on market expansion?
It would be best to start like in Utah, so we can, logistically speaking, could be easier for me and for the franchisee, I think. But I had already a lot of offers from different states like Hawaii, California, and Georgia, So there's a lot of interest in it. People come here on vacation, they try our gelato, and they're like, hey, why don't we open one in Hawaii or California? So yeah, there is a lot of interest. But I think it would be best to start in Utah, growing up in Utah a little bit, and then expand going outside. But either way.
Well, I talked to so many founders, and they're not all as calm, cool, and collective as you. Where if they had gotten inquiries from all over, I know many of them would have been started expanding everywhere. How do you stay so laser focused on
Yeah.
Utah and taking your time and being patient? Is that part of the Italian culture to try to be patient?
Well, the Italians are not patient.
I know. As a fellow Italian, I get it.
The thing that keeps me cool is the fact that I'm not doing this just for money. I'm doing this on a different mission, which is like bringing the Italian culture to the United States. So I want to do it right, because if I expand and I visit a store and the gelato is not the same as the other shops, it would be a failure for me. It would be like I would take it as a big loss.
Yeah.
So for me, quality is the most important thing. So I'm not in any rush to expand. I just want to do it right.
That's awesome. And like you said earlier, I mean, it's the long game.
Long.
And yeah, again, this is not get rich quick. What about the type of franchisee you think that's going to really thrive in your system, especially since you came from the other side of being a franchisee? So you probably saw other franchisees in the system and saw who succeeded and who failed and why they did well or didn't. Who do you think would do really well with the Sweetaly franchise?
They're usually, I would say, young couples would do well. People that are willing to spend time in the shop and kind of make it the company great, keeping the consistency and everything. I would say a young couple would be ideal. And after
Okay.
that question.
And you want them to be an owner operator, or you're okay with having somebody have a managed franchise? What's your preference?
I like people being in the shop, like I said, so operators as well. And then, of course, gradually moving away from the shop is always a good thing. But at first, it's a mix of both, I think.
Yeah. I assume you're starting with just single unit franchise owners at this point. You're not looking to get into multi-unit operators yet?
Yeah, not yet, but yes. I mean, like in the future, for sure.
Sure. What's the investment range to open a location?
So, it depends, of course, on the location where you open it. Depends on the remodeling and stuff. But I would say that you start from 170,000 up to 300.
Sure. What's the typical size footprint of a location?
Yeah, ideal 1,200 is perfect, but it depends also. Like, for example, in California, where it's always good weather, or you can eat it outside, so you need even a small. You could go even like 800 or 700. It depends, but for any other state, I would say from 1,200 to 1,500.
Okay. And what is training and support going to look like?
Oh yeah, very very intense. We would provide all kinds of help and support and training.
Now, we're talking classroom training, grand opening training. Maybe you can kind of expand on that for us.
Yeah, so I would ideally for me it would be like having the people come into our shops and learn how we make gelato on our gelaterias first, and then we would go and help with the setup and everything and the training in their own gelato shop.
And I imagine taste testing has got to be a part of the training. You got to make sure it tastes right.
Yeah, exactly. That's crucial right there.
What's one thing that you've learned, Francesco, throughout this franchising process that maybe surprised you weren't expecting?
So there are a lot of people that don't know what franchising means. I had contacts with some people, and not everybody understands what it is. So they think it's easy. They think they underestimate it. But also, I understood how especially working with my lawyer, setting up the contract and everything. Many things can happen, and so it's kind of scary. But at the same time, it's a risk that's worth taking.
Absolutely. Well, that's the beauty of franchising is that because the franchise industry is regulated, that potential franchisees know exactly what they're getting themselves into, right? And you're protected as the franchisor because ultimately the FDD is to protect you and to protect the brand.
Absolutely.
And we all know as the network grows, it's going to be more and more important that you're really protecting that brand. It becomes more difficult to protect the kingdom, so to speak.
Yeah, and as a franchisee, at first I did not understand that. And then with, experience and operating a shop, you really understand like, oh, this is why there is that rule in the case this happens.
Absolutely. And you know that from being a franchisee back running the organic supermarket, that there's probably some things that you weren't thrilled with, some of the rules. But looking back now, maybe some of the things like, I understand that because sometimes as a franchisor, the difficulty is that, if you and I had one or two franchisees, of course we can make exceptions. It's easy. But the real challenge is that if we allow exceptions as one-off, the bigger our network grows, the bigger or more exacerbated the problem becomes, right? Because you can't have people running their own, for example, Sweetaly the way they want to, because then you don't have a brand anymore. You don't have a franchise.
Absolutely. I imagine them as sort of like a crack in a dam.
Yeah.
It's like you cannot allow any cracks. That's why franchising is hard, but at the same time, you got to have those rules.
Absolutely. I would tell you too, though, one of the challenges that I had early on as a franchisor is that I felt like, okay, I need to train them. I want them to have everything. I wanted my franchisees to succeed so badly, and I wanted to give them everything they needed. But then there was a time where, as their business continued to grow and they got more experience, I had to recognize, Francesco, that they were the ones on the front lines. I wasn't on the front lines as much, and so they had a lot of valuable input that I really needed to kind of accept and process. And I think that for my brand, our company really exploded because once we started listening better to the franchisees and collectively had this, a stronger brain trust, if you will, it allowed us to harness the power of our network. And that's the magic, I think, in franchising that, truthfully, I'll tell you, I didn't think about when I first franchised, and you probably didn't think about that as a franchisee. And I assume you're going to experience that yourself now going forward, and you're going to be a better franchisor because of it.
Yeah. I remember as a franchisee, I proposed some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, being a new franchisee, they were like, they did not even listen to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Really frustrating. And then after a few years, where they saw that I could run my franchisee shop and in a very good way and making really good profit margin and stuff, they started to listen. And I introduced a couple of things on a national scale. The idea came from me, and so that was pretty cool, I think.
That's awesome. Well, Francesco, I'm telling you, this is one of your superpowers going into this venture is that like I said earlier, most founders are franchisors only. They don't know what the other side looked like. They didn't live it. Yeah, we think we know what a franchisee goes through, but I'll tell you talk to potential franchisees and you tell them, I get it. I've been there. I did it for 10 years, I think you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did it for 10 years. So you went through the highs and lows of what it takes. And that's a huge advantage you have because let's face it, there's 4,000 franchise brands that people can choose from. But if somebody wants to buy an emerging brand, something that they really love, and something like gelato that
Yeah.
is different, because there's a lot of ice cream franchise concepts out there. There's not a lot of gelato places, as far as I know. You have a huge advantage. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And no, I totally agree. I think it's when you are a franchisee, you need to really like be patient. Patience is the key. I remember when I first started, I was really frustrated.
Hmm.
Still frustrated with some of the things. But I think when you start seeing the results, and of course, there are some franchisors that don't have the things together. So it's a
Right.
learning process even for the franchisor. I don't think that as a franchisor I've figured everything out since I don't have the experience yet. Yeah, but I'll get there with making mistakes, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. The goal, I always tell people, listen, you've got to make mistakes. The goal is make the mistakes fast.
Exactly.
Learn from them and don't make the same mistake twice, for God's sakes. But don't be afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think that's key. So, Francesco, where do you think you're going to take this brand over, I don't know, the next 5, 10 years? I know you've got your heart set on kind of saying very central to where you are, but where do you think this is going to go over the next 5 years?
It's a good question. I wanna expand, of course. Either way, if I'll be able to expand or not, I think that what we've done so far is great.
Hmm.
We are bringing the community together. Our gelato shops are a place where everybody meets and just enjoys gelato. It's a way of escaping the daily stress and politics or the drama of any kinds. Just go there, enjoy our gelato. So we're already succeeding. We want to expand, and so that more people will experience, what our customers are experiencing in our current gelato shops. So I think, like I said, I'm in no rush, but ideally it would be great if we could open at least 3 more gelato shops. It would be great in the next 5 years.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you've been doing this for quite some time now, for a number of years, right? You've been in the gelato business for 11 years now?
Yeah, 11 years.
Yeah. So have you noticed any customer changes or trends that are different today than they were when you first started?
That's a great question. I don't think, not really, not really. What really changed? I think it's people. It's getting easier and easier to find you, because now with cell phones, it's just easier that way. I remember 11 years ago, yes, cell phones were a thing. I mean, like 2014, yes, but right now I think it's easier, and we're growing like every year, at least by 10%, 20%.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I think that technology helps us a lot. But
Yeah.
the customers did not change much. I mean, like we have a wide range of customers from young to, school kids to elderly people. So
Right. No, pistachio gelato is always amazing. That trend is probably not going to change anytime soon.
yeah, for example, and of course, every year there are trends in flavors too. For example, this year the chocolate Dubai flavor is everywhere.
Okay.
But but there are the classic flavors. They never change. They're always a trend.
Sure. Well, going back to technology, you said earlier, I mean, that's one obvious change. I think it's easier for us to market now to getting customers
Oh, yeah.
than it was, 10, 15 years ago, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, it's super easy. You just post something and people share it. They don't need to physically talk to people, but also word of mouth. I think is very important. But I think like the word of mouth right now, it's mostly through social media, that's what really changed.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Francesco, you've got an incredible story, a success story coming here, not having an entrepreneurial background or growing up in an entrepreneurial family and, obviously being a franchisee and now doing this. Is this a legacy business for you, Sweetaly?
I hope it is. I have two kids, but none of them want to. Maybe my daughter, she's more like an artist. I will see. But I want it to be a legacy for everybody, for people that want to be part of the Sweetaly family.
Nice. We've got a great opportunity to do just that. I'll be looking forward to you to open one in Florida, but I know you're in no hurry to come all the way here.
Florida would be great. The great weather. There's a lot of competition, though. There's a lot of gelato shops in Florida. It depends where you go, I guess. But
Yep. I'm not worried about competition because you know what? People always find the best product.
I agree. If you focus on the quality, I always say quality, customer service, and the environment.
Absolutely.
The three, I call it the trinity of business. If you have these three down, you're good. You can open anywhere and you don't fear any competition.
It's true. First of all, when you walk in and you feel that experience, you feel welcomed when you walk in.
Absolutely.
It feels totally different when you walk in. You kind of walking into a factory or a machine and you don't feel like you get this big welcome and they're just helping, that current customer and they don't want to, help doesn't want to engage. It doesn't encourage you to come back.
Yeah, they need to be happy. If they work for you, they need to be happy, and the customer will see that, and they will feel welcome. It's very important. Customer service is very important. Of course, then product. If you don't have the product, of course.
Right.
But yeah, also environment is very important. Keeping the shop clean, is also very crucial.
Yep. Well, Francesco, this is an exciting time for you. I'd love for you to share with the audience, why is it now a great time for somebody to join Sweetaly?
Well, it's a great time because we are just starting. And so as the first franchisee, you have a little bit more, we will be way more flexible than
True.
And down the road. And also it's exciting because if you are one of the first, then you have more options. You have a larger area to expand if you want to open more than one. Yeah, and plus also I'm a very flexible person. I really listen to, I communicate well with people. So you always have my support. People always have my support. So that's a great time because we're just starting, I guess.
Yep, it is a great time. All right, well, let's tell people if they're interested in learning more about Sweetaly, where would they go?
They can reach us out through our website. There's a section dedicated to franchising opportunities. They can write an email at info@sweetalygelato.com or call one of our shops and drop your telephone number and I'll call you right back.
All right, but they can go to sweetalygelato.com, right? That's the website?
Yes, that's our website, yes.
All right, fantastic. All right.
Oh, it's actually Sweetaly.com. I'm sorry.
Oh,
that's
sweet.
our
Okay.
old one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they can go to sweetaly.com. Awesome. All right. Last question for you. So, Francesco, I end every podcast, I call it the franchise tip jar because the franchise community is so generous with sharing of information. So I got this question for you. I know you're starting out, but I'd love for you to kind of think fast forward, 5 years out, and you've built this thriving franchise system already. What's the story that you hope that your first few franchisees are going to tell other people on what it was like working with you and becoming part of Sweetaly?
I guess I would like them to say that Sweetaly is like a family where everybody helps each other, even with, differences, different opinions and stuff. And I want them to really feel what I felt when I saw that my shops were successful. I kind of enjoyed that sort of satisfaction after hard work.
Well, Francesco, it was great having you on the show. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Look forward to the launch of Sweetaly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related related to the podcast content.